All right, I believe we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Nicole. If you're new here, I'm former fat girl, and I'm joined by a new friend of mine, Amanda of Your Wellness Ally. And she is a physician assistant. So we're going to be talking all things proper human diet, what it's like to work in the healthcare setting, practicing the proper human diet, and answering your questions. So for those of you who will be trickling in, we are live, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and put a Q in front of it to flag it for us, and we will be sure to get to you. But thank you so much, Amanda, for joining us on this Sunday morning or afternoon. Ooh.
Right. Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started before we get into the fun stuff. I am OMAD now, kind of. Today I'm too mad, so it kind of rotates, but I'm noticing I'm OMAD more and more recently, which is very interesting to me and so much easier when it comes to planning food and work and stuff. So let's start off with a fun question to kind of break the ice as people start trickling in. Did you eat a meal yet today? If so, what was your first meal?
And you're talking to me, right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, should I just tell people who I am or like a little bit about myself, or are we just like going into the question?
Oh no, this was just my question to kind of break the ice to give people a chance to come into the chat and talk about your background. Yeah.
I am a 2-meal-a-day girl. I'm an extremely active person. So I used to be someone who got up every morning and was starving. But since adopting the carnivore lifestyle, I usually eat probably around 11 a.m. And that's after my workout. And I eat a very large amount, and then usually around 5 in the evening. So that's for me. It works really well. I still can't even believe it. I used to try to fast, right? And I couldn't do it because I was so hungry all the time. So it's a game changer. And I think also, adding in a little bit more fat than I was accustomed previously has been extremely helpful.
Yeah, same here. So we got Jerome in the house. What's up, Jerome? Thanks for joining us. All right. So, Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and essentially your journey to carnivore / low carb?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you again. I just love connecting with like-minded people. Your energy is absolutely contagious. The two of us, I love our dynamic. So thank you for that. Guys, my name is Amanda Brooks. I'm a practicing physician assistant way back when, because I've been practicing for 20 years. When I was in college, I was actually studying English and French. I was studying abroad in Paris, and a good friend of mine, he fell very ill with an autoimmune disease. And I'm that helper, that empath, that person that wants to help someone. And so I was like, oh gosh, like, what am I going to do with an English major? So went back to the States, came home, changed my major, earned a Bachelor of Science in Human Nutrition. Love food, always have. And I was thinking, again, it's going to be very difficult to practice as a registered dietitian and change the way in which people eat, because it's just how we grow up. And I'm thinking, I want to be able to enter the world, make the biggest impact, and provide the most value. So instead of going on to become a registered dietitian, I went on to physician assistant school. And so I graduated 20 years ago. And since then, I have been practicing emergency medicine. I absolutely love it. The first probably 7 years of my practice, I was strictly adhering to, the medical model. In other words, here, if you have hypertension, here's an antihypertensive. If you come in, so basically just relying on big pharma. And it wasn't really until I was in a big 60-bed ER in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I was thinking to myself one day, gosh, I am seeing so many sick people. Big pharma, something just doesn't gel. And that's when I really started looking at alternative health. And so I've been a huge advocate for kind of bridging that gap between modern and alternative medicine for, the last 13 years or so. I've owned a wellness center. I see patients in consultation online now. I'm still a full-time PA in a smaller emergency department here in Bangor, Maine. So that's a little bit about myself, so that's me.
Awesome. And I'm so glad, and I'm sure hindsight is 2020. I'm sure you're glad you didn't go the RD route at this point.
I am. Oh my gosh, just kind of a nightmare. It's difficult, as you guys are getting on here. I mean, we're all big into our diets, but many people aren't, and they're not willing to make, sacrifice because they do want that potion, that pill, that injection, that IV. But yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah. I do want to give one person a shout out in the chat before we continue. So Carnivore Ron, what's up, man? So Ron is the one who actually recommended that you and I talk. So Ron has been absolutely amazing in pointing me in directions of people's channels. So I'm very, very appreciative, Ron. You rock. He's a rock star.
Well, hi, Ron. Thank you. I'm very glad that Nicole and I are in touch now. So thanks.
Okay, so what after all of your training, you're trained in nutrition, you have a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition. I'm sure it was largely plant-based. We're like plant-based and the RDAs and all that stuff. Is that largely what you were taught in your nutrition education?
Well, so it's kind of crazy, right? Like we adhere to the food guide pyramid, which, if you aren't familiar, that's a crazy story that we can talk about if we have time. But no, actually, I was an athlete. So big into weightlifting, truly believe that muscle is the organ of longevity. So I was a huge advocate for eating meat. Okay. This is so crazy. And then, like I said, I was practicing down in Pennsylvania. My then husband was in his orthopedic residency to become an orthopedic surgeon. And my mom, she was like, oh gosh, you got to read this. You got to read this. And so I ended up reading the China study. And this was after throwing it away because she sent it to me. I threw all this plant-based stuff away. And then one day I just read the book and I was like, oh gosh, like that totally makes sense. Didn't check the references, didn't really do any research. And then just all of a sudden threw out all my meat and became a plant-based human. And I was plant-based for several years. And I thought I felt great. But this is the thing. When people say that they're plant-based when they're vegan, they get rid of the crap, right? Like they get rid of the sugar. They're adhering to a more whole food diet. They're getting rid of the alcohol, the packaged goods. And so could I definitively say that it was the meat, getting rid of the meat that made me feel better? I really couldn't. So after several years adhering to plant-based, I started having cravings for steak. It was so weird. And so I was with a friend in Newport, Rhode Island. It was her 50th birthday. And we ended up going out for steak. And it was like a hush hush. My family, they're vegetarian. And so I kind of felt like guilty about it. But then started sneaking more meat in, building more muscle in the gym, felt like I could build the muscle. But where I turned or found Carnivore was, crazy enough, online dating, met this guy. Thank you, Ryan. He is a gym rat. And he was talking about the carnivore diet. And instantly, guys, if you're plant-based out there and watching this, like, I get it. As soon as he told me he's carnivore and then explained to me that he only eats animal products, I'm like, woohoo, this guy is absolutely nuts. Deleted him, like bye-bye, like we're not going to even meet on a date. But the information was there, right? The seed was planted. And so I continued to live my life, essentially plant-based, seeing super sick people in the emergency department, dealing with autoimmune diseases with my online business, not knowing how to help people, making a few tweaks. Again, I have, so much alternative medicine knowledge. I even trained at the Gerson Institute. I don't know if I told you that.
No.
To treat cancer naturally. So just like, I've just always been into finding what's best to help people. So anyways, 4 months ago, I just started thinking, what is this carnivore diet? I mean, I'm an open person. I'm going to read everything I possibly can. And, thanks Dr. Ken Berry, Anthony Chaffee, Sean Baker, started reading all of the books and then started looking back at the China study and cross-referencing and like all of this. And like my mind was blown and I started just getting all these, oh gosh, click, 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 aha moments. I'm guessing you can kind of relate, Nicole, like just aha. And then I was like, I'm going to commit to, 30 days, which then went to 60, which then went to 90. Cause I was like, if I'm going to even recommend this to anyone, I got to do it myself. I'm like, I'm not going to tell anyone because this is weird. Like I'm probably going to feel like crap. Like, that's what I was thinking. I can't even imagine getting rid of plants, but here I am, never felt better. Can't keep quiet. And yeah, so super excited. And it's all making sense. And, with my background, it's just, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, I have so many follow-on questions. So I did a reaction video. I'm not sure if you saw it with someone who critiqued the keto diet for the treatment of cancer and promoted a plant-based diet, of course, because plants is what you treat for cardiovascular disease, autoimmune, cancer, all that stuff. It's just the gold standard. So when you went and learned about cancer treatment, did you learn about cancer cells feeding on glucose? Like, I'm very curious on what you learned about the cancer aspect and nutrition.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, with Gerson, I mean, Max Gerson, who is the founder, like he did an exclusion diet though, right? Like he had headaches, he got rid of everything. He started adhering to more like an apple, like a more plant-rich based diet. But they actually, interestingly with Gerson, there is a specific diet, but it actually focused more on manipulating thyroid, increasing antioxidant enzymes through coffee enemas and things like that. So there wasn't a huge emphasis on plants. But what's interesting about plants, since we know that plants are alive and they don't have defense mechanisms like, fists and, whatever to fight off predators. And so we know that they do create chemicals to keep themselves alive. And I'm a huge advocate. I'm an essential oil enthusiast, which, essential oils come from plant parts, stems, roots, whatever, and we use them medicinally to treat illness. So again, when I was thinking about when Dr. Chaffee was saying plants are killing us, I was like, is he nuts? But then I was like, wait a minute, like I'm using essential oils, which are highly effective against ailments as well as many herbs. But I'm like eating all of this. I'm like, wait a minute, like cows eat grass, like they just eat grass, like koalas, pandas, like they've evolved, they've adapted to be able to tolerate a plant. But we as humans, we eat anything and everything. And specifically, like I said, I have a lot of patients with autoimmune disorders, weird rashes, and our skin's our secondary chimney, right? So it's manifesting things that are going on internally. And so I've found now when we eliminate all plants, guess what happens? The rashes go away, the symptoms dissipate. So I just found that really interesting. So if people are thinking about plants and wondering why we're promoting not eating them and thinking it's insane, I get it. But I'm hoping, Nicole, that through people like us that we can educate and we can provide them with the information that a lot of us have now seen, because it's going to make their health so much better. I know it seems like such a mind F, you know what I mean? It's crazy for
yeah. I do see the questions in the chat. I have started them. I promise we will get to them in a minute. So you mentioned cows, and that's funny, the timing of this conversation, because I actually had someone in my comment section of one of my most recent videos, and I appreciate every sub and every comment. But he did make that comment about we humans do get our vitamins and minerals and nutrients from plants. And then he did make the reference to cows. He's like, just look at cows. They eat grass all day long. And I'm like, yes, but they also have 4 stomach chambers, 1 fermentation, 1, to handle all that stuff. We don't have that. Our digestive system is completely different. We're not made to digest that stuff or absorb that stuff. That's why it gets excreted in our stool or in our gas. And that's why it's very inflammatory. But he did compare us to cows, and he did make that comparison that I thought was very interesting. I've never heard of anyone make that comparison before. So just the timing of you mentioning that was kind of funny, because I just read that comment this morning, being compared to cows.
That's so interesting. And just like while we're like on the animal thing, guys, like, do you have a dog or a cat? Because I have a cat. I mean, I work 12-hour shifts, so unfortunately I can't have the dog. But Mr. Milo, he's like the $5,000 cat, because, cats and dogs are obligate carnivores. But what we're doing to our domesticated animals is we're feeding them grains, and they're getting sick. So they're getting like Western diseases. So like, I'm sure that you know someone's pet that has diabetes or, you know, heart disease. Well, my cat, he kept getting urinary obstructions, and now he has a urethrostomy because of the crystals that were clogging up his urethra. And so we're trying to transition my cat even to a carnivore diet because the kibble in the grains, they're actually, again, making animals sicker. I sometimes like to appeal to people through the animal analogy, Nicole, because you're either, I mean, because there's so many animal lovers and people will do anything for their animals. So this is very eye-opening as well. I mean, life expectancy of animals is getting so much shorter compared to what it used to be because of what we're feeding them.
Yeah, don't eat your pets, people. So, but yeah, we just lost our senior kitty. I actually got a tattoo of his paws on my arm. Like, it was very, like, the hardest thing we've ever had to do was put our cat down. We just lost him like 2 months ago, so it's still a little raw, but he had crystals a few years ago and he almost died then because we were away on vacation, and then we came back. It was Thanksgiving weekend, and we were visiting my husband's family in Massachusetts, and we came back and he just was collapsed, and it was the crystals in the kibble we were feeding him. And now we had to put him down because he had multiple myeloma, so he had advanced cancer. So we actually had that thought as well. We have one surviving kitty, and we were talking about transitioning her. She's 10, so I don't know how well it'll go, but transitioning her to raw meat and their natural diet. So I would definitely love to chat with you offline about your plans on doing that, because we're thinking of doing the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
And then the last thing is, and then we'll get to the questions, is you don't see a cave painting with green smoothies or people with their nose to the grass just eating grass in their lawn. You don't see that in cave paintings. You see hunters killing large ruminant animals and feasting on meat. You don't see them blending up green smoothies and stuff like that on cave paintings. So I just want people to think a little bit about that.
No, but I think it's also it's part of the narrative, right? Like, and for me personally, just being in modern medicine, like, I kind of tend to go against the narrative because I feel like the narrative wants to keep us ill. And so there's a huge push for plant-based right now. And like you said, it doesn't make any sense when you think about it logistically. Like, we really need to, we need to feed ourselves. We need to make sure that we're not deficient in nutrients. And when I was plant-based, I had to supplement like up the wazoo, which was insane. And I kept like racking my brain. I'm like, jeepers. I'm like, geez, if this was the way to be, like, where am I supposed to get B12? Why am I so deficient in, K2 and D3 and vitamin A? And so that's also food for thought, because as we're sitting here, Nicole, and we're like talking about this way of life, this way to improve our health, you and I aren't pushing a product. Like, that's just it. Like, we're not like trying to sell anyone anything. We're literally just saying, guys, let's just go back to an ancestral diet. Let's like think about this logically. If we think about the way in which the human body works and has evolved, and what we need to function, and how we're fatter now than we ever were before and sicker, something has to change. So I'm super appreciative of people like you, people in the chat that are, sharing this information and speaking out, because guys, it's 100% uncomfortable sometimes, but it's uncomfortable, but we've got to be okay with getting uncomfortable. I promised myself that I was not going to talk about carnivore diet in the ER. Guess who's writing up discharge papers talking about the carnivore diet? This girl. Everyone's like, what is this? So now it's created, all sorts of curiosity. Like, when I have like a friend, delivering a 20-ounce ribeye, and everyone's like walking by, like it's an attraction. Like, what's Amanda eating? Because they used to be a big salad, and now it's like a big, yummy smelling ribeye. So I mean, it's creating curiosity. It's having people look at us and say, she's so fit. She's so fit, and look at her. She's not gaining weight. She's like lean as can be. And that's the other thing that I saw when I looked at Chaffee and Baker and Barry. Like, they all look like beautiful, muscular, fit beings. I used to be a huge advocate, and no disrespect, Dr. Greger, but I used to be a huge advocate for certain plant-based physicians. And if you compare the two body habituses, I mean, which would you rather be? You know what I mean? Like, it speaks volumes. Just saying.
That's funny. I do want to get into your practice. Well, let's hit up some of these questions. Let's welcome a couple people first. What's going on, Rick? Another vegan friend fell down the stairs and broke her arm. Yeah. Dr. Sean Baker actually did a video, I believe, yesterday about some vegan, a few vegan TV stars or movie stars who fell and broke their bones. And he gave a stat on the likelihood of vegans breaking their bones, vice animal eaters breaking their bones. Now, I'm not against people eating, fruits and veggies and all that stuff if you can tolerate it, as long as you're meat dominant, as long as you're eating your meat is the key. Carnivore Ron said the same thing. Several women in his gym are vegan. They don't talk to me now. I mean, I was vegan for 4 years and I gained 20 more pounds.
No. Hey, Ron, and don't worry, like, they might come back around. Like I said, I talked to this guy, Ryan, a year ago, and now we're still buddies. Like, now we're like talking about carnivore all the time. So you're planting seeds. So,
yeah. There's probably jealous because you're 70 something years old and you could probably outlift them. Yeah. Roger, I've never seen a human out grazing on grass. That's what I'm saying. Unless you go out to your front lawn and put your snout to the grass and just start eating it.
But this is also the thing, right? Like, as a plant-based advocate before, I was always hungry. And it's because the food that you're eating essentially is very high in fiber. And so you're pooping it out, right? So you're not absorbing all of the nutrients. That's what the main reason why I personally wanted to do carnivore is because I was still a sugar addict. So I was like always hungry, like my brain was always busy. I over-exercised to compensate for any kind of sugar binge I might have. And I was just thinking, geez, I'm 44 years old. I just lack, I just don't have any willpower anymore. But it's infinitely more than that. If your body isn't absorbing, if the foods that you're not eating, if the foods that you are eating, are not, the nutrients aren't bioavailable, you're going to constantly have cravings. So that's the biggest thing that I personally noticed when I started adhering to a carnivore diet is the chatter up here was completely gone. And so I have, several followers online that are always like, they have huge addiction potential, right? Because sugar, we know, can be compared to heroin. I'm still seeing tons of meth addicts. I mean, cocaine, it lights up the amygdala. So the part of the brain that's just like, I need more. And you know what, though? It's socially acceptable. So when I go into the emergency department, there's little smorgasbords of sugar here and there. And people say that they can't get through their shift without it. Well, I tell you what, that was the first thing that I noticed on the carnivore diet is that, oh my gosh, I'm eating all of this red meat. My body feels satiated. I'm not having to, like you said, Nicole, I'm not having to portion control. No animal out in the wilderness has to portion control. They eat until they're comfortably full, and then they don't eat again until they're hungry again. And so I think that that's been, there's a dichotomy, right? Like everyone wants to count macros and, but Amanda, how much? Like, can I eat? Listen, you eat until you're comfortably full. You're totally revamping the way in which the body works because you're actually learning to listen to your hunger mechanism, which none of us do. So I think that that's extremely powerful for people and for those of us adhering to this as well.
Yeah, 100%. So Don, what's going on? How often should a person fast, and does fasting raise your cortisol?
So interesting question. Huge advocate for fasting. And I think Nicole and I were chatting before this. And so I think, I don't remember if I said this before or not, but I used to always try to intermittently fast because when we're in a fasting state, we turn on that sirtuin gene, which is in charge of autophagy. So autophagy is basically like cleaning up cellular debris. But I couldn't do it because I was always hungry. Whereas now, like Nicole, she usually eats 1 meal a day. I'm usually a 2 meal a day woman. Dawn, I don't recommend that anyone try to fast. I think you just need to listen to your body. So I'm different from Nicole, who's different from you. So what I would do without further information is eat until you're comfortably full. And then I always say I have an almost 9-year-old daughter. And if she's saying that she's hungry and she wants a snack, I say, do you feel like eating beef? She's like, no. I'm like, do you feel like eating eggs? She's like, no. I'm like, do you want me to, so we go through those things. So if you're asking yourself these things, it's just out of boredom or emotional eating. And so anyways, I would look at that. And then I would kind of go from there, because people that have restricted for many, many, many years, they still need the 3 meal a day to adhere to this. All I care about is that you're not eating the trash. You throw out the packaged stuff, all the sugar, the preservatives, like all of that stuff. And then, then you'll find your little niche. And as for cortisol, cortisol is a stress. It's a response to stress. So I don't know specifically the data between fasting and cortisol, but I would doubt that, because when your body is, the fasting state is really our primary metabolic state. And that's the state in which most animals are in all the time. Their cortisol levels aren't raised.
Okay. And this is why I like Amanda, because she said don't eat like trash. I always say garbage. So same thing. But yeah, when it comes to fasting, I agree. I don't know how long you've been doing carnivore, low carb, or whatever version you're eating. But you'll notice the longer you do it. I started out with 3 and then I went to 2, and now I am kind of like in between 1 and 2. Most days lately I'm 1, some days like today I'm 2. So it just depends on my hunger and how much I ate the day before. But you'll notice that you naturally fast. One, you're naturally fasting when you're sleeping, unless you sleepwalk to the fridge, which there are people who do that, nocturnal binge eating. But unless you have that, then you're automatically fasting while you're sleeping. I don't recommend intentionally fasting. You will notice that you naturally fast the longer you do this, and your cravings will go away. As far as your cortisol, there's a number of things that raise your cortisol. If you fast intentionally and you're going extended periods of time without food, your blood sugar is going to naturally be low. Now you want to be careful with that, because there's a point to where it becomes dangerously low. But because of that, you have a slower release of cortisol. So your cortisol levels will naturally be low, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing either. So it just depends on what's affecting what. So if your blood sugar is low, say with someone like with diabetes, pre-diabetes, or type 2 diabetes, say your blood sugar is low, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing unless it's low because you're eating the right types of foods. But if you're going prolonged periods and your blood sugar is low because you're not fueling your body, that's not necessarily a good thing. That's the same with cortisol. If your cortisol is super, super low, that doesn't mean it's necessarily a good thing, because cortisol, it does affect other things in your body too. It's not 100% negative 100% of the time. That's all I wanted to say about that. And then when it comes to emotional eating, since I know a lot of people struggle with this, just know the differences. Kind of like what Amanda said, if you're emotionally hungry, you're going to have sudden cravings, usually from boredom or eat your feelings type thing. You're going to have sudden cravings, and you're going to be craving specific things, mostly salty, sugary foods. If you have true hunger, physical hunger, it's going to be gradual hunger, happens over time, and you crave a variety of foods, whether it's beef, butter, bacon, eggs, whatever. But if you are emotionally hungry or eating out of boredom, you're likely only going to crave a specific thing. Like, I want a bag of chips, I want ice cream, or I want this, I want that. But over time, that will start to subside and decrease. At least in my case, that's what happened.
You know what makes me like, if I do have that, like what I've created for myself that totally calms the mind is butter bites. I don't know if you guys have made those. Yeah. So you just basically take 2 sticks of butter, you stick it in a fry pan, you brown it, you put it in the fridge until it almost solidifies. Take an immersion blender, make it all fluffy, and then you put it into molds and you stick it in the freezer. And then they're like little toffee candies. You literally can just like take a few of those out, pop them in. The salt kind of like quenches the sugar craving, and then the fat causes the brain to relax and the craving to go away. So that's been very helpful for me.
Yep, 100%. Speaking of butter bites, we do have more questions, but Jonathan, Carnivore Muscle, he just changed his channel name. He and his partner make butter bites all the time. But I do want to give him a shout. He is a channel member. So if you want to join my low carb crew, check out my channel, but also check out Jonathan's channel. He does come up with a lot of great content, especially when it comes to muscle building, exercise, working out while doing the carnivore diet. Because there's a lot of misconceptions whether it comes to fats and carbs and all that stuff when you're trying to lean out or put on muscle. So definitely give his channel a check out.
Yeah, I'm excited. Carnivore muscle. I don't want to scare you with my guns there, though. So,
he did ask. We're going to have to show our guns. But Mark says essential oils ? And then same with Ron. Why do essential oils ? Can you explain a little bit about the essential oils aspect?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, like over the last 13 years, like I've just really been trying to bridge that gap. So pharmaceuticals, they typically treat a symptom, and we're looking to make the body function more optimally. And so what I like about the carnivore diet is it just naturally like reduces fasting insulin levels. It's reducing inflammation. I think a lot of things can be completely cured by the carnivore diet. But before I found out about the carnivore diet, I still need to have ways in which to effectively treat patients and their ailments by kind of giving the body what it needs. So like, for example, like young kids, right? Like they have sometimes a difficult time sleeping. Their pineal gland might not be, releasing melatonin well, or this, that, or the other thing. And so I might use lavender. Again, you want something that's certified pure therapeutic grade, because most essential oils, like you can kind of like, it's a fad now, right? So you can kind of buy them everywhere. Like, but the thing is since they're not third-party tested, you could have like, due to it's called fairy dusting. You could have like one drop of an oil and it's like filled up with a seed oil, for goodness sakes. I don't know. And so people are like wondering why they don't work. But essentially, like I said before, essential oils they're coming from plants and plant parts. Okay. And they're distilled down. And so you need a very small amount. And I use them for a lot of different things, for breathing, for sleep, frankincense. We've studied this against cancer, like it stimulates apoptosis. So we know about it helping with programmed cell death. I mean, there's so much, but that's a whole nother little interview for me. But it's interesting. The reason why I've referenced essential oils is the fact that plants do create toxins to ward off predators, which is why it kind of clicked in my brain that, yeah, we're using these to treat ailments. We shouldn't be ingesting large amounts of plants. And I see this actually, there's a huge correlation between, interestingly, and again, I keep reverting back to the ER because that's where I work, but I'm seeing a huge amount of inflammatory bowel disease right now, whether it be diverticulitis, whether it be colitis, ulcerative colitis, bouts of Crohn's. And like I said, I'm coming to you from Bangor, Maine. Guys, I live down the street from Stephen King, if you don't know where Bangor, Maine is. And everyone is eating out of their gardens right now. So I'm very careful to ask when I diagnose a patient with an inflammatory bowel condition, what are you eating? The knee jerk is, I'm eating a healthy diet. Well, what does that mean to you? And of course, they spout off that they're eating all these fruits and vegetables and yada, yada, yada. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, every single person with all of this like inflammatory bowel. And guess what I say? Guys, I've got something. If I have something that I could tell you about that you could do that's non-pharmaceutical to change the way in which your bowels are operating and make it so they're no longer sick, would you be open to hearing it? Guess what everyone says? Yes.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is if it's a female patient that has a husband accompanied that's right there with her, and I'm saying, eat beef, butter, bacon, eggs, the husband's eyes are getting so big and getting all excited. And so it's interesting to see that dynamic. But again, it's showing that increased amounts of fiber are causing microabrasions in the colon, resulting in we know that high fiber diets are resulting in diverticulosis, right, which is the outpouchings of the colon. And then they become inflamed to progress to diverticulitis, which requires antibiotic administration. But again, I'm randomly seeing inflammation to the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, which are, the small bowel, as well as the large bowel. And the big thing is we need to decrease fiber consumption 100%. 100%. Same thing with like elderly people. Do you know how many times, please, I hope that people do not come to the emergency department for constipation, if any of you guys are watching, but I see a lot of people in the department because they can't poop. And when I look at their med lists, they're on Metamucil, I mean, up the wazoo, right? And they're like on all of these stool softeners. They're using fleets on them as they're doing all these things. And then when we sit down and think about it and we talk about how, fiber is actually leading to constipation, which is, dry stool that can't be evacuated from the colon. And instead, what we need to do is get rid of all that, increase fat consumption, and then you're not going to have an issue. So again, it's an interesting dynamic. And again, like I said, I wasn't going to talk about the carnivore diet at work, but I can't even help myself. And it's just like being thrown in my face all the time now. So.
Damn. Well, that was good. All right, guys, that's all we have for you, Tam. I'm just kidding. That was like perfect. Because I work with seniors as well, and their diet is god awful. But RDs come up with their menus in hospitals, nursing homes, senior communities, and I look at the menu, and there's one meat dish, and the rest of it is soy and plant-based and carbs and sugary garbage, and it just like blows my mind. And then the other thing about fiber is what most people don't realize is that you're not only losing vitamins and minerals, so say a nutrient. So say you eat a piece of steak with some green beans or fruit or whatever. Yeah, it's going to get wrapped up. Those nutrients from the steak are going to get wrapped up and caked up in the fiber, and you're going to excrete some of those nutrients out. So most people are aware of that. But what they don't know, specifically when it comes to women, because we're very hormonal, and we have a lot of things going on every month, pre and post menopause. But what people fail to realize is, yes, we may pump out extra estrogen at certain times of our cycle and month, whatever. But what happens is you're not only losing vitamins and minerals, you're also losing hormones. Your hormones are also getting wrapped up in that fibrous material, and you're excreting some of that out too, which, yes, excess anything may not be a good thing. So it may not be all bad, but losing anything, especially if you're eating a ton of fiber, which most people are, and not realize it because they're eating so many fruits and vegetables and carbs and all that stuff, you're losing more than just vitamins and minerals and nutrients. You're actually losing, your hormones are getting wrapped up in that as well. And a lot of people don't realize that, because I haven't really heard anyone talking about the hormonal aspect of it, but you are losing hormones as well. And I believe that because of our diets, things like PCOS, endometriosis, monthly visitor symptoms like menopausal symptoms, all those things, I think that's part of it, is our hormones are getting even more affected because we're losing those hormones in the fiber as well as all the other things that are going on. So that's just what I think. I don't think the things women experience, like the symptoms, the PMS symptoms, I personally don't think that's normal to feel that way. And I think the hormonal aspect tied to the fiber aspect, I think, plays a large role in that. That's just my working hypothesis, not backed by science, people. But my working hypothesis, just understanding how fiber works when it comes to hormones and nutrients. That's just what I think.
So I think that plays a part, but I think like the even bigger part, Nicole, is the fact that we as women, we're not consuming enough fat. So since the 80s, with, Susan Powder, who my mom was obsessed with, and she got me obsessed with, she always would say, the fat that you eat is the fat that you wear. And so we're also obsessed with low fat. And that's why I just want to put another plug in before I forget. Just because you have a physician or a provider that you know and trust, do not believe everything that they say blindly. Because as I'm sitting, in the dictation room dictating, my colleagues are still saying, adhere to a low fat diet. And that's just not true. So like with women and hormonal issues, jack up your fat consumption, because you can only absorb so much anyways. And I've found that women that are perimenopausal, which I hate that term, but they're symptomatic, they're having like brain fog, fatigue, anxiety. If we're increasing their fat consumption far above their protein consumption, they fare much better.
Oh yeah, 100%. I didn't mention fat because most people know fat regulates your hormones, but most people don't realize that you're losing hormones because
Yeah.
they're wrapped up in the fiber component. So if you're increasing the fat and then decreasing the fiber, I mean, it's a win-win. I don't have PMS symptoms anymore. Sometimes I might feel fatigued, obviously, if I don't, because I sometimes don't think I eat enough fat. But other than that, I don't have symptoms anymore. I don't have pains. I don't have discomfort. I'm not bloated because I'm not eating plant foods anymore, and I jacked up my fiber. So that's a tip for any women listeners in this chat.
Yeah. Hey, I see Lena's question. Like, oh my gosh, like I just have to.
There's a bunch of questions. Which one?
The one about the premenstrual week cravings for bread, pasta, and ice cream. I just have to say one quick thing.
Well, what time was it at so I can pop it up?
It's like right under our pictures, like on my screen. I don't know. It says inspired art life.
Okay. Yeah. We were going to hit on that. I thought you were looking in the chat. Yes.
Oh, I don't even know what I'm looking. I'm a newbie. Nicole's like the ringleader. I don't even know what I'm doing here. So
I popped it up on the screen. So inspired by art life. Lena, what's going on, Lena? So carnivore for 4 months. Congratulations. The premenopausal, the premenstrual week, the cravings for pasta, bread. Yep, all the carbs. There's a reason for that. I fell off the wagon every time. As women following the diet, maybe you have advice.
So okay, I'm not affiliated with Cuisinart, but go get on Amazon and buy yourself a Cuisinart ice cream maker. The best thing that I've ever done. I think his name's Dr. Kiltz. I saw he creates carnivore ice cream, and all it is a quart of heavy cream and 4 egg yolks and some vanilla. And he uses a pinch of salt. I'm not into the salt in my ice cream. Literally, you whisk all that up together. You put it in the ice cream maker. It takes about 20 minutes. And then I just bought like little cups from Amazon, and I just put it in there. And so whenever I'm having that craving, Lena, like it's absolutely amazing. It tastes just like ice cream without the sweetness. So it's the same consistency. And obviously, as you've been doing this for 4 months, I'm sure your taste buds are much more keen and astute to flavor. So cream actually tastes sweet, even though you never thought it did before, but it does now. So that's what I do. So I always have that in my freezer for when I have a sweet attack.
Yeah, I'm actually getting a Ninja Creamy thing. My husband's ordering it from Amazon today. It takes 1 to 2 months to get that thing in. It's sold out in all the stores. It's really frustrating. But the ice cream is a good tip because you better believe I'm getting that Ninja Creamy, and I'm going to make some protein ice cream too. But yeah, when you're having that time of the month, I mean, your hormones. Most women know that their hormones are fluctuating, but what most don't equate to is also your blood sugar levels fluctuate as well, because it's a stress to your body, as well as your cortisol, as well as your serotonin levels. So if you have that time of the month and your blood sugar levels are affected, they do rise. May not be to the level of diabetics, but your blood sugar is affected every single month, unfortunately. But when that happens, your body responds a certain way, because your body thinks it's under attack. So your body does, to a certain extent, again, not as extreme as if you're under chronic stress or whatever, but to a certain extent, your body does respond the same way once your blood sugar is affected, once your adrenaline is released. You do have this release of your glycogen stores, and this is more so if you're eating carbs, if you're a true fat burner and you truly transition. This may not affect you as much, but there's a caveat to this. But if you aren't a fat burner yet, that is very common, those types of cravings, because of the physiological response that your body's having every single month. The other thing is your serotonin levels are affected as well, which controls your mood. Amino acids that you get from meat, such as tryptophan specifically, help elevate your mood. So that might help with the cravings and the emotional eating. But that's really what's happening. So that's very, very common. But the longer you do an animal-based diet, those cravings and your hormonal fluctuations and all that physiological response should be more balanced over time. But that's likely what's happening. So just ride it out and just know eventually it will normalize. You can do the protein ice cream, of course, but that's what's going on, and why a lot of women do crave the carby foods. It's because of that hormonal response. Let's see, we got Jerome. What's up, man? Do you have any concerns that promoting something outside of the normal standard, yes, I wanted to get to this, normal standard of care will pose a risk to your job? Okay, Amanda, go.
Interesting. So I've kind of always been that person that once I believe in something, I can't like not share it. You know, like that person that goes to the movies and sees the best movie and she tells everyone about the movie, or, you know, a good dinner or whatnot. So Jerome, like, I got into medicine because I truly care about people. And I think a lot of my colleagues can't say the same. So I'm a huge advocate for personal choice and for informed consent. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm providing them with information. What they choose to do with it is up to them. So I'm actually like starting to print things out on discharge papers because I'm hopeful that some of my colleagues, my cardiologist colleagues, my neurologists, like my internal medicine colleagues, my GI associates, like I'm hoping that we can have a round table discussion, because like how cool would that be? Because my eyes were closed for so long. I just found out about this. And like I'm having all these aha moments because I'm looking into it. So I think a lot of them, you know, would be quick to shut the door on the information because they haven't looked at it, which is exactly what I did a year ago. So I'm hopeful that it's going to stimulate more of a conversation. What I'm concerned about, I guess, is that those of you who have heard Dr. Sean Baker's story, you know, practicing orthopedic surgeon, who was like creating prevention for a lot of his patients who weren't needing surgery after following his direction. But guess what? My ER, it's overrun with patients. We've got several hour waits and we don't have enough providers. So no, I'm not worried about losing my job. They couldn't get rid of me in function. So in the meantime, I'm hoping that I'm just going to continue to help more people, because that's genuinely what I want to do.
Can you get your license revoked or no?
As a medical provider, right? Like you can get like 5 medical providers in the room, right? And like they look at things differently. So I might promote probiotics for this patient. My colleague might not. Like they might. There's general standards of care, and then there's personal preference and practice. And so I'm not promoting anything lethal. I'm doing just the opposite, and I have all of the science to back that up. So if someone said, oh gosh, you're promoting red meat, that causes coronary artery disease, or that's going to increase my cholesterol. And I'm thinking, actually, it's the sugar that's doing that. And we can show you specifically that 3 Harvard professors were paid off to falsify data to show that it wasn't sugar causing coronary artery disease, but instead it was red meat. So if we want to do that, hey, cool. Like I love having open, honest, like non-confrontational and non-argumentative conversation just about the facts. So that's my answer.
Yeah. So this leads perfectly into this question. It's a little out of order, but you mentioned cholesterol. So Gina, welcome Gina from Facebook. What's going to happen to cholesterol eating a high-fat diet? I get this question a lot. I'm definitely going to kick this over to Amanda because she's the doctor. But I have 2 clients who were sent to me, of course, with high cholesterol, fatty liver, and one of them, actually 2 of them, had heart disease. One had surgery, the other has heart disease, and they were recommended by their doctor the Ornish diet, essentially a plant-based diet. And I tried having a conversation with them just to give them another option, not to try to persuade them, but to give them another option. And it's very hard to kind of explain to people or give them another alternative, because doctors have a DR or MD at their end of their name. So they take their advice to gold, and they will go to the grave with their doctor's advice. So I guess to add to this question about cholesterol, how do you recommend people in the nutrition space going against the grain, or even people, in a medical field going against the grain, explain this topic to patients who are prescribed a plant-based diet for cholesterol and all these other things? So I guess that would be a second part of this question.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, if you haven't seen my video on cholesterol, watch it, because it can go into far more detail than Nicole and I have time for today. But again, it's remembering that your provider went to medical school and was taught by professors to use pharmaceuticals. So we know that statins, which are cholesterol lowering medications, they decrease your LDL, your bad cholesterol. And this is one of the highest grossing pharmaceuticals in the nation right now. That's a whole other story. But with that being said, in the medical community, I don't prescribe statins, I'm in the ER, but primary care providers, it's a knee jerk. You see someone's cholesterol level, and you intuitively just stick them on a statin. It's just it's a reflex, right? High cholesterol equals prescribe a statin. And I think a lot of times your provider doesn't even know exactly why they're providing it. They look at the research, but they're looking at relative risk versus absolute risk. I mean, so there's a lot of things to unpack here, but in a nutshell, I will say this. What I will say is, when we look at patients that have sustained MIs, sustained heart attacks, we see a large portion of them that have low cholesterol. So if low cholesterol was linked to lower risk of MI, why is that true? So when we're adhering to a carnivore diet, what we're doing is this. We're increasing typically our HDL, which is our good cholesterol. We're decreasing triglycerides, which triglycerides are a direct representation as to what we're eating. And our LDLs, they might be jacked up. Who cares? Who cares? So what I'm saying to you, because we're using a lot of little lingo. So if you're not in medicine and you don't know HDL, LDL, triglycerides, essentially this. If you're adhering to the proper human diet, I don't give a rip what your whole cholesterol is. I just don't, because you're doing what your body needs to function optimally. We know there's studies that show specifically that all-cause mortality is increased with low cholesterol. In other words, we know that the people that live the longest have the highest cholesterols. What's problematic is high triglyceride levels and low HDL levels. So Nicole just mentioned fatty livers. So fatty liver, we used to see this with alcoholics that overdo it with alcohol. But I'm seeing this on, I'm bad with numbers. I'm seeing this on a large majority of patients that come to the emergency department with abdominal pain that we do advanced imaging. So I'll get a CT scan and they have fatty liver, but that's from carbohydrate consumption. Okay, so again, increased carbohydrate consumption causes an increase in triglycerides, which results in disease, fatty liver, and so many other problems. So again, in a nutshell, go back, watch my video on cholesterol. But yes, your cholesterol, your bad cholesterol. And then we have to break that down, whether it's big and fluffy or small and dense. I mean, again, I don't want to take up too much time. But there is, it's more, the cholesterol issue is the problem with carbohydrate consumption and triglycerides. So that's where we're going with that.
Yeah, cholesterol is definitely a controversial topic. So I am going to mention this doctor, and I know the people in the chat are going to be kind of confused why I mentioned this doctor. So Paul Saladino. Now, I personally do not have a problem with consuming honey and berries. Honestly, I don't, because we did eat those things. It is. I don't agree with the amount. I don't agree with the 300 grams of carbs. I think that's insane. But a lot of people discount his information because he eats fruit and honey now and all that. He can get away with it because he's very active. He surfs for 4 hours a day. He also goes to the gym. He's active 6-8 hours every single day. So he can get away with it. But that doesn't mean his information's bad. So he did a very in-depth, almost 2-hour conversation with a cardiologist, and it was a friendly debate. And Paul Saladino was defending LDL, like meaning it's not the cause of heart disease. And the cardiologist was, of course, saying that it's a contributing factor and all this stuff. It was a very interesting conversation. I definitely recommend people go check that out as well. But he did mention insulin resistance as being kind of like so he mentioned LDL being the kind of like the wood for the fire. It's associated, but it's not the spark. And he said that insulin resistance is the spark that lights the flame, and LDL just kind of gets wrapped up.
Yes, it's because everything's sticky. Like that's how I like it. Like we really need to like bring things down to a level that everyone can understand. And yeah, I like that. Yeah, because it makes things sticky, and then they stick to the vessels, which causes which causes narrowing, which causes disease, right? Stroke, MI. No, yeah, I see that. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. His information is not bad. Do I agree? Do I have a problem with honey and berries? No. Do I agree with eating as much as he is eating? No. But does that mean his information is bad? No. I just say that because people give him a bad, people think badly about him, but that was a really good conversation. I watched the whole 2 hours, and it was fascinating to me because I do get that question a lot. Every time I work with a client and I recommend increasing their meat consumption, the first words out of their mouth is, what about coronary, what about heart disease and cholesterol, right? So I don't know if this is true, and then we'll get off the cholesterol topic. So I know that they're lipoproteins, and I need to get smarter on the topic of cholesterol because we were just taught the basics in my nutrition training, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't prescribe things. So I never really did a deep dive on it, but I do know that our bodies do make it to a very minimal extent. Our genetics play a factor in the levels of cholesterol. I know they're lipoprotein. The LDL transport things across the cells, across the bloodstream, all that stuff. So an analogy I heard recently is the lipid panel that people order for their cholesterol. And when it comes to the LDL portion, that panel, and I don't know if this is true, that's why I'm asking. So that panel tests for the passengers in the car, not necessarily the cars on the road. I guess there's a separate test for that. But does that LDL panel test so like there's a traffic jam in New York City. I don't care how many people are in the cab in front of me. I care about how many cars are on the road, because the amount of cars are on the road is really preventing me from getting the point A to point B, not the passengers. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not a PCP, so I never order lipid panels. But a traditional lipid panel looks specifically at the three components: the good cholesterol, which is HDL, triglycerides, and the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol. And you can fractionate that, you can break it down, but that's an additional test done by the PCP. Instead, they just look at the LDL, see a big number, they don't look at it. But again, we're not looking to see if it's small and dense or big and fluffy. And again, if you're adhering to a carnivore diet, so if you're consuming a ketovore or carnivore, so if you're consuming 20 grams of carbs or less a day, then we know, like just intuitively, that your triglycerides are going to be low, and your HDL is most likely going to be high. So again, we know that the LDL, you don't even really need to do the test, right? Like I had a professor in school that said, ordering lab tests is like picking your nose in public. If you find something, you need to know what to do with it, right? I think we as humans, we just love tests. We want to test. I'm like, again, look at yourself. How do you feel? Again, when you come into the emergency department and someone's worried about my blood pressure because it's 90/60, I feel great. Stop. So in other words, don't just look at the numbers. You can't just look at the test score. What we're doing is we're just trying to give our bodies what they need to heal themselves. And we know that by adhering to an ancestral diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, like all is going to fall into place. Does it always fall into place overnight? No. But I will say, like all of these people that I'm seeing right now that are on like medications to lower their glucose levels secondary to diabetes. The big one is semaglutide. If you haven't seen my video on that, please watch that. Please watch that. There is risk associated with absolutely every single pharmaceutical. And that's what we need to be looking at. Not our numbers and treating this, but what are the risks associated with the medication that you're taking? When people are like all worried about eating meat and their cholesterol levels, yet they're taking a statin and don't know what that statin's doing, and that the actual benefit is 1%, but the risk is, giving you diabetes, causing brain fog, like causing rhabdomyolysis, which I see regularly in the department. I mean, that's the thing. Pros and cons. The Hippocratic Oath is do no harm, but sadly, modern medicine is doing so much harm right now, which is why it's really my goal to help every single person out there who's willing to listen with an open mind to become an advocate for themselves. Because if you don't advocate for yourself, you are going to get sick and you are never going to have the life that you want. Because if you continue to rely on pharmaceuticals, you're not going to get the answers that you want. And that's a message that needs to be shared widespread, because you know what? All of your physicians, all your PAs, your nurse practitioners, whoever you see, our schooling is funded by big pharma. So that's how we're trained. I'm not lying. Like I'm just being authentically me. Like, listen, like I'm not proud of it. Like, but at least I'm looking outside the box and I'm calling myself out, because I advocated for a plant-based diet for so many years. I've never been a big pharma advocate, not ever. But at least now, and it's difficult, right? Because people are like, are you losing followers? Or I don't care. Because listen, I'm human. I'm evolving. I'm learning. And the thing is I'm so appreciative of everyone in the carnivore community for the support, for the information that you're sending my way. I'm reading everything as quickly as I can and really trying to reach out. Like, I've already reached out to a few dietitians that I know who are diabetic educators. I'm reaching out to other PAs that I'm friendly with, physicians. I'm leading by example in my department. And I know that through, when people see examples and being like, I'm leading by example, I hope. I'm not quite so bold as to like tell people, like my colleagues, what they need to do, but at least they're looking at me and being like, she looks healthy. Like, oh, she's pretty cool. Like, we'll look into what she has to say. And you do it in a non-pushy, open way. And so I think that everyone needs to continue to have these open conversations with their provider. If your provider slams the door in your face, it's not the right provider. Because we in medicine, and Nicole and I were talking about this beforehand too, I don't know everything. I just know where to find the answer. So if a patient asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm like, hey, let's figure this out together. I don't know. Let's look it up. I'm not, your doctor is not perfect. They don't walk on water and they don't know everything. And a lot of them trained a lot of years ago, and they're so inundated with stress and patient load at work that they're not doing what they should be doing and continuing their medical education. So just remember that. A lot of times, you know far more than your doctor about nutrition. I have a Bachelor of Science in nutrition, and I'm specifically saying nothing from my Bachelor of Science has contributed to what I'm teaching today or what I know to be true. In other words, it's all a bunch of hogwash. So there's that as well. So just know that you probably, if you've looked into anything with diet, carnivore, or of the like, you know more than your doctor. A lot of doctors don't even know the difference between carbohydrates, protein, and fats. They just don't. They don't know about essential fatty acids. They don't know about nutrient deficiencies. They don't know about fat consumption. They don't know about carbohydrates. They definitely don't know about fasting insulin levels. They can't tell you, like, they don't know about C-peptides or whatever. They know A1Cs. They know regular glucose levels. They know if you're pre-diabetic according to your glucose level. They're still promoting that you adhere to a low salt diet. Are you kidding me? And they're like recommending the DASH diet to decrease your blood pressure. And you're scratching your head and you're saying, why am I on 2 going on 3 medications for my blood pressure and it's still not budging? It's because it's your diet. That's the thing. But they're not willing to have the conversation. Number 1, it takes too long. Number 2, they don't know anything about it. So guys, just keep, if I can just stress something, keep being an advocate for yourself. Your human body is your human body. Your gut, 80% of your serotonin is in your gut. Trust your intuition and your gut feeling. You know better than your doctor most of the time. You really do.
Yeah. The only 2 things I will add is, outside of amen, is I apologized to a lot of my clients, current and past, because I was trained the same way when it comes to nutrition. My formal education, and I was plant-based myself, and their health wasn't improving, and now I'm just going against my training. So it's just a lot of hours, a lot of money, a lot of testing and studying that I went through to get these credentials that I'm not even using hardly any of it. I'm using some of it. I mean, the biochemistry,
the basics, the basics.
Yeah. So no, I 100% agree with everything you said. And then the last thing is you're your own advocate. My doctor, back when I was still obese, I mean, I'm not to my goal yet. I'm almost there, but they want to put me on blood pressure meds. Because my diet was crap. Obviously, I was almost 100 pounds overweight. I said no. I said, let me try to lose weight. They never talked to me about life. Same with sleep apnea, because I was fat. I was obese. I call a spade a spade. I had sleep apnea, so they sent me home with the machine. Not one doctor who are trying to prescribe me stuff and send me home with equipment, talk to me about lifestyle, diet, told me to lose weight, anything. They were just super quick to say, here's a script for blood pressure meds. Here's your script for a CPAP machine. Here's how to order it. Like all that stuff. I came home with the CPAP machine. But yeah, it's I said no. I did take the CPAP machine because I wanted to save my marriage, because my husband was sleeping in the other room because I was roaring. I didn't know this little body could snore that loud. But when it comes to the blood pressure meds, I didn't take any pills. I said no. So just take exactly what Amanda said. You're your own advocate. If your doctor tries to put you on something, you have every right to say no, to fire your doctor, go to another doctor, whatever the case is, but you do not have to do what your doctor says if you don't agree with it.
But also remember, they're good people with good intentions and good hearts. I think that they're not as well informed as they need to be sometimes. And again, that's the medical model, but that's why education and being open is so important.
Right. So Rick has been, of course, carnivore for over 40 years. He said, can anyone explain to me how sugar can make you crave it? It's so nasty. So this doesn't have to be a long conversation, but I was a sugar addict. I didn't get to almost 100 pounds overweight without a problem with food. That it's just the way it is. No one gets to be obese or have a weight issue without some sort of problem with food. Those foods are addictive, and they're made to be addictive. But it's all how your body responds to it on the physiological level, kind of like what I described earlier. Your hormones respond to emotions naturally. Whether you're happy, sad, your body doesn't distinguish. It responds the same way. And a lot of people turn to food for those emotions, because your glycogen stores your glucose, so sugar is released into your bloodstream. Like all these things are happening on a physiological level, to where some people, it affects your appetite. So your ghrelin, your hunger controlling hormones increase, your leptin, I like to call your fuel gauge, decreases. Now, some people's appetite can get suppressed, but the vast majority of people have increased appetite and increased cravings because of their physiological response. It's just the difference is, if you're eating the right foods, like an animal-based diet, or depending on your emotional and mental health at that point, you may not A, have those cravings like other people do if you're on an animal-based diet. B, you have better coping mechanisms to where you don't rely on food. Unfortunately, people like me who had a traumatic childhood event, I relied on food. That's how I coped, because I was 11 when my brother died. I didn't know how to grieve. Hi, kitty. I didn't know how to grieve. So I turned to food. That's what I did. And I became mildly addicted to sugar. But it's a coping mechanism. Your body does respond a certain way to put off those cravings. It's just the difference is, if you're eating an animal-based, carnivore, whatever diet, then your hormonal response isn't going to be as much as someone who is following a higher carb diet. Your hormones are going to respond differently. So that's the difference. If you're coming from a standard American diet, that's why most people are overweight or obese or have a sugar addiction or a carb addiction. It's because of the way their hormones are responding. And then B, it's the way they're coping based off their emotional and mental state. So that's without getting too in the weeds, but it is a true addiction. People do have true addictions, kind of like alcohol, because it's a drug. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good. And I think that, I mean, it's kind of like saying, like, why are we addicted to cocaine? I mean, and some people are, there's been studies, some people's amygdala in the brain lights up for cocaine and some it doesn't. I mean, I can reiterate what Nicole said, but also like vitamin deficiencies. So if your body's deficient in something, then you're going to have like weird cravings as well. So adhering to a high fat, protein, carnivore diet, I think eliminates that.
So Jonathan does this every stream. So show us your guns.
Oh my gosh. I can't even. Jeez. I should take the whole sweatshirt off, but no, I'm not gonna. Hey, Jonathan, go check out some of my thumbnails on my videos, and you can see all my muscles.
I actually took a picture in the middle of my cooking. I like pulled my sleeves up and just flexed and sent him a picture. He's like, I said, as soon as I get rid of the excess fat, because I'm still losing fat, I was like, it'll be good. He's like, that's not bad, actually. I do have a bump. I do have a pretty big bump, but yeah, I sent him a picture.
I love that. And you know what's so great about Carnivore is like, I can see my 6-pack now. I mean, all of the things like, and just a plug for women, like with muscle health. I think the carnivore diet is supreme, right? But I think that everyone needs to be doing weight training, because if you have more muscle, that's also going to help with glucose regulation. It's going to help with posture. It's going to help with stability. It's going to help to decrease or prevent osteopenia progressing to osteoporosis. If you have better stability, strength, balance, you're going to have less risk for fracture. And we know that hip fractures and the like increase mortality as we age. So, and hormonal control, I mean, we could go on and on about muscle, but please get in the gym, lift heavy weights, not little pansy weights, lift heavy weights. And if you don't know how to do it properly, then hire a trainer for a month, figure out how to do it. But again, it will increase bone density and helps all around with everything.
It's more metabolic too, so it'll help with your
basal metabolic rate jacks up. Yeah, exactly, for sure.
So Linda McAllister, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Tips for a first-time fast. I think we kind of covered this, but Amanda, do you have any tips that maybe we didn't talk about?
I think Linda, we did. So in a real big nutshell is you just eat when you're hungry. So this is completely different than what you've heard of in the past, but we're kind of reverting back to our ancestral diet, right? Like, so animals aren't told how much they can eat and how much they can't eat, right? Like the animals, like the cow grazes in the pasture till he's full, right? And so that's what we're doing. So you're going to eat a meal. You're going to eat a meal until you're comfortably full, like almost like stuffed, For the first 2 weeks I adhered to carnivore, I kind of felt this like a little bit of nausea almost. And I think it's because I wasn't used to eating so many nutrients that were being absorbed at once. And it was just kind of weird in my brain to be eating so much. So you do that, and then you don't eat again until you're hungry. So in the beginning, you might be eating more often, but eventually you might be doing like OMAD, or like you might be eating 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. So don't worry about the fasting. I think that people are so worried about counting macros and counting calories and portions. And oh my gosh, I want to get lean and I want to lose the weight and I want to do it as fast as possible. We're not looking for a quick fix. We're looking for a lifestyle, and we're looking for a way in which to change and to live our lives. So it's just naturally going to happen. Your appetite's going to regulate. And once your appetite regulates, then you'll figure out how often you need to eat. So I wouldn't worry about the fasting, I guess is what I'm saying. There's so many benefits associated with it, but it's going to just happen naturally as it's supposed to.
Yeah, 100%. Before we get into more questions, I just want to give a shout out to Roger. He used to weigh over 400 pounds, lost 170 pounds, and he's now 230 pounds and continuing to lose more pounds every week. Heck yeah, Roger. Awesome. Congratulations.
Goosebumps. That's awesome. Awesome.
Okay. So next question. Crypto carnivore. Is that cryptocurrency carnivore? That's interesting. So been on Lion Diet for 8 months, going great, except for some digestive issues. Will only go number 2 every 3 days. I can explain that too. Or so, then have to stay close to the bathroom, going multiple times for hours. I believe it was Crypto Carnivore or someone else who actually asked this same or similar question. I apologize, Crypto Carnivore, if it was you that asked this in a previous stream. But do you have a response to this, Amanda?
Well, it's basically just because anyone on a carnivore diet, whether it be Lion, so if your Lion diet is just eating red meat and salt and water, I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. And so again, everything that you're eating is bioavailable. So you're using 90%, your body's utilizing 90% of what you're eating. So your waste, your poop is going to be so much less When I was adhering to a fiber-rich diet, right, I was pooping like 4 or 5 times a day. I had so much gas in my stomach, it was horrible. And so that's what I always tell patients when they start with the carnivore/lion diet, is that their waste is going to be, it's kind of in your head, right? You need to poop because that's what you're used to. That's what everyone tells you need to do. But there's nothing to poop. So you poop when your body needs to. And if you're eating fatty red meat, if you eat more fatty meat in a day and you're over consuming fat, your body like gets rid of it. So it comes out in loose, greasy stool. And so I think that that's probably why you're like peeing out of your bum or whatever. I mean, that's essentially like what happens is you just are over consuming the fat. But I wouldn't be worried about it at all.
Yeah, another thing I can add, that's exactly what I was going to say. The other thing I would add is I don't know how much water you're drinking, but drinking water with your meat can help with the digestion process too, help it digest a little easier. So maybe try, I don't know how much water you're drinking. I don't know what your diet looks like, but if you don't think you're drinking enough water, maybe try that as well to see if that helps.
I mean, and it, like your whole microbiome is like just readjusting. I think I saw somewhere over here that someone said about it takes years. It does. Like you're just, I don't know how old you are, but you've been living a certain way for, however many years, and your body just has to like reacclimate too.
Right. All right. Bonnie, how's it going? Does a carnivore diet help with atrial fibrillation?
Hey, Bonnie. So interesting question. I haven't seen any research to suggest that it does. I mean, AFib is basically an electrical imbalance in the heart, right? Like it's like kind of working overtime, causing the atria to fibrillate and causing like a fast, irregular rhythm. It couldn't hurt, because could that be caused by an increased amount of inflammation? It could. So I'm just pontificating here. I think that, again, if you have AFib and you're probably on a rate control agent and you're also on a blood thinner, I think that the carnivore diet could be helpful. I don't know. We could. What is that cardiologist, Dr. Ovardi, or begins with O? Like, he might know. Have you heard of him? Anyway,
Dr. Ovadia.
Ovadia, yeah. So we need to ask him that question, because he's the cardiologist. He would know the answer to that. I can't think of anything specifically relating the carnivore diet with AFib, sadly.
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor, so obviously all these medical questions go to Amanda, but I don't pretend to be one. But I will say, the only thing I will say is, what do you have to lose? Just give it a shot.
And my point exactly.
And see what happens. And the other thing is the carnivore diet, there are people who in the space who may be a little bit more dogmatic and extreme, like saying, yes, carnivore diet can help with X, Y, Z without really knowing. I don't like to go that route. I like to say the carnivore diet cannot cure or fix everything. It could help most things. So it may not be able to correct 100% of every single ailment you have, but it certainly will help most things. But I like to say that, because I think there are a lot of people who just willy-nilly say yes. Like whenever there's a question on the carnivore diet, can the carnivore diet help this? They just automatically say yes. And I don't necessarily agree with just automatically saying yes, because while it's important to eat your proper human diet, as Ken Berry coined, or eating that way will absolutely help, I don't think it's a fix-all for every single thing that we have in our health. It will help most things, but it won't fix everything.
I think, like, if you are living in a house, you want a house with a very firm and stable foundation. And that's what carnivore diet's doing. It's giving your body the foundation to decrease inflammation, normalize sugar levels, and reduce fasting insulin. So, and there's so many disease processes that stem from an imbalance in those things.
Yeah. Annette, hey, how's it going? Answer to AFib. Yes. Mom, now 86, has AFib. She eats very meat-based. Her blood work is so good. She managed with a minimum dose of meds, and her cardio said she only now needs to come once a year. Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome. And she's probably not drinking alcohol, which can cause holiday heart and worsen AFib. And same thing with other stimulants like caffeine. So those are other things to think about.
Okay, I definitely don't want to keep Amanda. Do you have time for a few more questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I don't want to wear her out on her first live.
Yeah, this is my first live, y'all. So thank you, Nicole. Thanks everyone for having me. I'm sweating over here.
Like on the hot seat. Okay, so Lisa, how's it going? What about green tea? I gave up coffee for green tea. I have less anxiety and getting better sleep. I never drank green tea. I think it looks and smells like a football field. So there are things out there, like if you Google green tea health benefits. Now I don't trust everything I read because I know it's very skewed, but there are things out there you can read on Dr. Google that say green tea can be used in a therapeutic manner. But what do you say about that?
I mean, Lisa, I think it's like you listening to your body, right? Like some people are super sensitive to caffeine consumption and some aren't, So, I mean, and there's advocates for the carnivore diet, like Dr. Chafee, who is totally anti coffee or tea of any sort, where there's others that are more liberal. I definitely have a cup of coffee every day. So if green tea is your thing, then do it up. I mean, it's an antioxidant. It's a polyphenol. It's helped with a lot of people with weight reduction and stress control, according to some of the research I've read. So I'd go for it.
Yeah. And Dr. Chafee says plants are trying to kill you as like a catchphrase to get people's attention. While he may believe that himself, I'm not that extreme. I do have berries. I will have green beans every once in a while, and avocado, even though that's technically a fruit or whatever. I think he says that to get people's attention more so. So yeah, don't fear the caffeine in green tea and all those things, because people like Dr. Chafee are saying that just to get people's attention. In my opinion, he can very well mean that, but I think it's more of a catchphrase to get people to like listen. Lisa, I got interested in carnivore after hearing another YouTube creator say she had to stop carnivore because she was losing too much weight. I'd love to have that problem. Your thoughts? Me too. What do you say to that one?
Right. So I think this is the thing. Like, we don't know exactly how much she was eating, right? So if we completely change our diet and we're not eating carbohydrates, we're using a whole different fuel source. And so if she is eating a teeny time, I mean, she probably was under eating. That's the thing. And we don't know how big she was. We don't know how much muscle mass. This is very difficult for me to answer because there's so many variables that could contribute to this. We don't know what her thyroid's doing. We don't know like her history, like our history and the way in which we've been eating for the last several years also plays a part in how quickly we lose weight. So that sounds bogus, like kind of bullshit. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know exactly why she stopped. I think I would guess that she's not eating enough fat and she's just not eating enough. But I don't know her history or her medical history or any of that. So let's just do you probably and do the carnivore thing. You will lose weight. It's inevitable. You absolutely will lose weight. You'll feel better. You'll have a major diuresis in the first few weeks of carnivore just because you're not consuming carbohydrates. And so you kind of excrete all of the fluid that you didn't even know you had. But then it's going to be your own story. It's going to be your own journey. It's going to depend on if you're weight training. It's going to depend on how active you are and like what your whole metabolic health looks like, what other ailments you have, if you're trying to correct your sugars because you're diabetic. Again, so many variables, but I'm cheering for you and wishing you the best on the carnivore. Can't wait to hear how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, without further information, I would say the same thing. It's definitely Seco. I wish that would just die. It's an incorrect currency of fuel.
It sounds like they just didn't want to do it anymore. You know what I mean? Sometimes like when people say stuff like that, like logically doesn't make much sense. So if something doesn't really make much sense, then they probably just didn't feel like doing it anymore.
It's a mass issue. If they're losing weight too quickly, it's a mass issue unless there's an underlying health thing going on.
Yeah, we don't know if they have cancer. We don't know if they have thyroid. I mean, like all the things. So
they're just not eating enough. Increase our fat. The easiest thing to do is triple B&E: beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. That's it. And just do that. That's the easiest way to get all your protein and all your fat in just a limited amount of foods to keep it simple. And then you can build from there. But definitely not eating enough. So yeah. So just do you. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Just listen to your body. And if you are losing weight too fast, I always like to recommend 1 to 2 pounds a week. If you're losing like 4, 5, 6 pounds a week, you definitely need to increase your fat. You need to eat more. It's too fast weight loss to be sustainable and healthy, in my opinion. Karen, reducing fat actually did further damage to my knees, the cushion for my joints. The older I got, the more I dieted, the worse my joint pain got. My issue is find creative ways to eat carnivore. Ooh, interesting. What do you say to that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I mean, I haven't seen your x-rays or your imaging of your knees, but as we age, right, like we just have more inflammation in the joint. We can get joint space narrowing, you know, bone on bone. And so I think probably as a woman, though, if you're adhering to carnivore, like Nicole and I talked about earlier, you need to have more, you need to have a higher fat to protein ratio anyways. And so now that you've done that, like you're decreasing the inflammation in the joint, helping with pain control. So the second part to your question about the creative ways of eating, that's interesting. I used to think that I cared about that, and now I don't. Like I love the simplicity of just going to the store, and if I'm in a hurry, just getting beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. It's so easy. Every single night, like I just know what I'm doing. Like because if I can just put the food in my mouth and then the brain quiets and I'm not hungry, then I can go about my day. And like I used to chop all the plants and do the sauces and the other thing. And that's the other thing. If you are putting any kind of rub on your meat, make sure that you're looking at the ingredient list, because what I found when I started doing this is, oh my gosh, a lot of the rubs that I'd used in the past, second ingredient was sugar, and some of them contain a lot of seed oils, which we want to do, you know, nothing artificial. So getting rid of any kind of salt or rub, any kind of rub or marinade that has salt. That has sugar or seed oil in it.
Yeah. Sometimes if I get tired of eating the same thing, I'll just mix it up. I'll make a chili. I'll maybe add some chicken one day or a piece of fish or whatever one day, and then going back to
quiche.
Yes,
easy, like a lot of ground beef with, you know, some cream and eggs, and you bake it in the oven and whatever. And hot sauces, you can find a lot of hot sauces without additives that are easy. I'm in Maine. Lobster, hello, I just ate 4 pounds of steamers with a stick of butter yesterday and then a steak last night. So yeah, don't forget about seafood.
Exactly. If you're animal based, just remember animal based, there's more meat variety than just beef and steak. I stick primarily to that just because for me it's simple. I don't have to think about it, because I hate cooking. The simpler the better for me. But there are times where I'll add ground turkey or I'll add leaner pieces of meat just to, you know, give me a little bit of variety. So it's okay if you do that every once in a while. We will definitely answer. We have 3 more questions, so we'll answer those questions. I want to be respectful of Amanda's time, but I just want to give a shout out. What's going on, Master Chief, sir? And then we got Susie says she lost too much weight on ketovore, but gained it back on carnivore combined with weight training. Increase the fat and protein, plus drop the plant foods. Yeah, exactly. And same with Kim. Hey, Kim. I have actually gained a few pounds lately on carnivore. I don't know why, but perhaps too much cheese or heavy cream, or just maybe artificially decreased weight from a fast that's now equalizing. Who knows? Yeah. So Kim, myself, and a couple other people are giving up dairy. Now, by dairy, I mean cheese. I cook in butter. I cannot give up cooking in butter. So I'm personally going to cook in butter. I don't eat sticks of butter, but I'm giving up dairy, cream cheese, all cheese. I need my cooking butter though, but for the month of September, because it's the same thing, like, just to see how my body responds. But if you've gained it back, I don't know what your diet looks like. It could be the dairy. I know I bloat and get puffy with dairy. I just get puffy and bloat, which can affect the number on the scale. So maybe try giving up the dairy. Also, it could be a mass issue. Like we said before, like on your portions, maybe you're eating too much fat. Maybe decrease.
And also just like as a side note, like I don't ever get on the scale anymore because I know what I weigh. So make sure that you're doing measurements And if your gym has the ability to test body fat, that's more important, because if you're gaining lean muscle mass, you're going to increase body weight, but who cares? Like, all we care about is increasing lean muscle mass and decreasing fat. So just like, it's a knee jerk to hop on the scale. But once you get to a certain weight, that's really not necessary either. So just doing the measurements around your arms, your legs, your waist, and your chest,
And clothes, because I always tell people.
Yeah, clothes. How do your clothes fit? Right.
I always tell people to throw the scale in the trash. Like, whenever I have a client who asks me how I feel about the scale, I say throw it out. Yeah. because it's all hormonal. It's not necessarily measuring. It's measuring weight. It's not body fat.
Yeah. Right.
Like you said, it's if it's hormones, it's the water fluctuations in your body because of your hormonal response. So if you had too much salt, you're going to be bloated. You're going to retain water. If you slept like crap, if you're stressed, like, all that's going to affect your hormones, which is going to make the number on the scale go up. So I use the way my clothes fit to track my weight progress, my weight fat loss progress. I just use my clothes and how they fit. I didn't use a scale. But yeah, that I hate the scale.
Same.
Roger, can a carnivore diet help reverse osteoarthritis? I know it helps with my pain and inflammation. Yes, that's what osteoarthritis is. But do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, helps. Yeah, you're reducing inflammation in your body, which leads to disease, including osteoarthritis and pain. So proud of you. I'm proud of actually everyone that's stepped outside the box and taken it upon themselves to try the carnivore diet, because I know it's going against the grain. So I also just wanted to give a shout out to everyone. Proud of everyone, honestly.
Yeah, awesome. So Master Chief dropped heavy cream from coffee, lost 7 pounds in the last 4 weeks. Congratulations. Yeah, it's very inflammatory and causes people issues like me. Like I said, especially around my jawline, I notice it more now, where my face will get puffy if I eat too much cheese. And Susie said too much dairy makes my skin break out. Yeah, that's the easiest thing to recommend, is if you're eating dairy, just drop the dairy and see how you respond. The last question, if anyone has any last minute questions, or any, as I like to say from the military, if you have any alibis, drop them in the question, in the chat, and we'll hit on it. But for now, this looks like the last question. So from Brooke, for me, being type 1 diabetic, Hashimoto's is a huge obstacle to weight loss. Any ideas how to possibly begin weight loss with complex issues?
Yeah, I'm guessing you have an insulin pump. I would really it's the carbohydrate consumption. I would start there. And then obviously, like, I'm sure that you know how to manage and bolus with your insulin. Like, again, without more information, Brooke, I really can't give additional information, but I think the carnivore diet, I'm seeing so many, like, more obviously type 2, but type 1, you can definitely change things as well, or how much you're having to bolus with insulin, because you want to give yourself as little insulin as possible, really, over the long haul. So I think, I'm hoping you're familiar with the carnivore diet, and if you're not, then becoming more familiar with it. But I think that's really your answer.
Yeah, Dr. Kiltz actually hit on this during his live today. He said type 2 is a liver issue, type 1 is a pancreas issue, because that's where we get our insulin response from. But when it comes to type 1, there's a lot, and I'm not 100% smart on type 1, because most of my clients are pre or type 2, because that's largely lifestyle. And I know type 1 is...
It's autoimmune issue. Your beta cells aren't working. I mean, it's definitely that. But there's a huge inflammatory component too. So
correct. And it's largely, your pancreas. It's just the insulin response is lagging, right? So when it comes to type 1, though, there's this big misconception, because whenever people talk about the carnivore diet or just lifestyle, just changing your diet in general, it's always pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes mentioned. No one talks about type 1 diabetes, because I don't know if people think like it's a lost cause, but I think if the same would hold true. Now, I'm not saying you can reverse type 1, because it's a different issue that you're dealing with, but if you are consuming a heavily, fat animal-based diet and eliminate the carbs and all that stuff, that should hopefully at least help manage your blood sugar better still. and maybe you can inject yourself with insulin less over the long term. So while you may not be able to reduce it, you should be able to manage it better and more efficiently and effectively.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions. Lisa says thank you. You are so welcome. You are so welcome, Jean Dixon. I hope this was valuable, and I appreciate Amanda's time and having her here with us on her first live. For me, it was very valuable to have someone so knowledgeable and educated in a healthcare space and going against the grain and doing deep dive research. So I definitely appreciate you being here and the knowledge you provided to me and the chat.
Thank you. I love being here. Thank you so much. This was a very great experience, and I'm appreciative for you allowing me to be here.
Awesome. Well, please be sure to give Amanda's channel a sub. I know some people were kind enough to already do that. Her link to her channel is in the description box beneath this. I also put it in the chat. So please do show her some love. Check out her videos. Give her video some likes. If you aren't subscribed to me, I appreciate a sub as well. I'm at Former Fat Girl. But thank you all for spending your Sunday with us. We definitely appreciate you. We couldn't have made this stream any more fun without you guys here. So we definitely appreciate you and your questions. So other than that, we will say have a great rest of your afternoon. Have a happy and healthy day. And we will see you in the next one. See you later, everyone.
Bye.